You're undecided, aren't you?
It's not undecided. There is a conversation that's taking place. I and many other MPs up and down the country, as you've mentioned, are very concerned about the tier system that's been introduced. The Prime Minister is right that we mustn't want to lose the hard fought gains that's been created by the national lockdown. But scrutiny of government is very, very important, particularly during an emergency. There is no playbook here to pluck off the shelf and say, this is what we do.
Oh, well,
The
no, there
government
is. No, there is. The World Health Organization has published this for many years. And what it does say specifically is don't do lockdowns.
Well, that might be the case, but even the World Health Organization has never been able to predict a pandemic that moves across the world at this pace. Because even our own judgments were made in the past is to follow what a normal flu does, a normal COVID-based flu does, not this pandemic. This has taken everybody by surprise. But that be as it may, what we have is over 80 boroughs across the country, about 16 million people that feel that they are probably in the wrong tier. And when it costs you almost $1 billion a day for this tiering system, it's absolutely right that we check to make sure that every area is in the
Okay.
correct
So
category.
your concern is people being in regions and areas being in the wrong tier, as opposed to an ideological, philosophical objection to having further restrictions.
I think both are important, but in the case of Dorset, we went into this lockdown with low numbers. We come out of it with even lower numbers. The last couple of weeks of data suggest that we've dropped even by a third. So we are querying, why did we end up not like the Isle of Wight? And these are the sort of questions that quite rightly any MP would want to put forward to the Prime Minister. So what we're seeing now today is that dialogue starting. We've got another 24 hours to get this right. Dorset MPs will try and meet the Prime Minister today to make our case.
Have you been given any evidence from ministers or from Downing Street at all about why your area of Dorset is in Tier 1? As you say, the Isle of Wight is one of the few areas, a tiny percentage of the country that is in Tier 1. Because the fact that we haven't seen yet this cost-benefit analysis that many MPs and myself and others have been demanding, and again, we know is routinely done in government for any measure, let alone a measure that's costing the economy billions and billions of pounds and may end up costing more lives than it saves. I mean, if you're not doing cost benefit impact assessment analysis, then when are you doing it? But they made the decisions last week. We know based on an awful lot of data that was already 4 or 5, 6 days out of date. But they're not publishing it, we're told, this analysis until today, which suggests to me they didn't actually do cost benefit analysis or any impact assessment before they made the decision. But they've managed to, they're cobbling it together over the weekend and they're publishing it today. Is that your fear, that actually they are not looking at this in a scientific way, and this is a bit more back of the envelope, well, put them in Tier 2, put them in Tier 3, vague decisions, as opposed to based on clear data and clear analysis of what it will cost and what it will benefit?
Well, the fact that there are so many areas that are enclaves, if you like, that have low incidence of COVID that are wrapped into larger areas, then yes, you make a very, very strong point. Let's see the detail, let's see the analysis, let's see the evidence that justifies their decision making, and that will then help us better understand. Let's not forget that you need to take the people with you. There needs to be that consent that supports the rules. Otherwise, the rules will go out the window, people will do their own thing. And you touched on data. That's such an important point. I understand that the decision was made on the 25th of November using data that was over a week old from an event that's going to start a week later. That clearly isn't right. We should be using up-to-date data. And another criteria that's worked against us is the fact that Bournemouth Hospital and many hospitals are under pressure. We understand that. But then what happened to the Nightingale programme? We built 7 incredible Nightingale hospitals by our fantastic armed forces, and they are lying dormant. It's not right that you can then put that as a point to any authority to say, you're busy in your area with COVID, your beds are full, when actually we've got empty Nightingales. That doesn't make sense at all. And there are 2,000 military personnel, medically trained, that could run these Nightingales should we have the MACA process concluded that would make them work.
And we know 2 of the 7 Nightingale hospitals have actually already been closed. So it's a bit strange. We've got Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, talking about all the fear of a third wave. Lots of people expect that we will be back in lockdown. You and I know perfectly well that we are going to be seeing infections. When infections have been going down, they went down before we went into lockdown quite consistently. But we will be seeing more people will be dying in January and February because that happens every single year. That's when people die of respiratory diseases. That we are going to be heading back to another lockdown. The big concern for a lot of people who want to do the right thing, they wear their masks, they are concerned, they're not saying no, not let it rip people, not it's a hoax people, but perfectly normal people going about their business, but worrying that the lockdown measures cost more lives and cost the economy more than the lives they save. That there is a fear that we are going to be doing this forever and ever and ever, unless or until either the people who would be risking fines and imprisonment, losing their jobs, stand up for this, or MPs like yourself say, enough, this isn't working. We have to accept that we cannot have a zero COVID strategy. It's never going to work. It's an endemic virus. And we accept that, actually, you know what? We are not going to have these vaccines rolled out within a matter of weeks and have everyone going back to normal. And we are simply going to have to accept that some people who have to be who are vulnerable or elderly have to protect themselves. But we need the country to get back to work and get back to normal life. Do you think that there's going to reach a tipping point at some point, please God soon, where MPs say enough is enough?
Well, I do agree with you. You'll be familiar with the Bournemouth International Centre. We've had many party conferences there. They are preparing to be to take over as a mass regional vaccine distribution location next week. This is just around the corner. Another criteria that is working against us is the numbers over 60s, is the infection rate in over 60s. And I'd absolutely agree with you. With the vaccinations literally just about to roll off in a matter of days or weeks, and it'll be over the 60s that will benefit straight away. Why not then bring in back that shielding that we started to offer? If you remember, everybody was very, very keen to shield. My mother still shields, actually, because she just thinks it's a sensible thing to do. We're so close. Let's have that plan that gets us through this difficult winter. Let's shield the over 60s and the vulnerable, knowing that it'll only be a matter of weeks before they get their injections. But it then means the economy can start to open up in key areas, because many of the businesses, hospitality in particular, are literally on their knees. And if they don't open up soon, I'm afraid, much as there's been huge economic intervention and support from the Chancellor, some of them will close, and once they close, they're gone for good.
Do you think the Prime Minister's listening?
Well, that's what we're at the moment. That's what politics is all about. This is why, it's important. Everybody talks about this as a rebellion. It's a conversation. It's raising the concerns. It's Parliament doing its oversight duty, and that's exactly what should happen.
Okay, well, we shall wait and see what that impact assessment, that cost-benefit analysis has to say, and no doubt we'll find out how that leads your vote.